Hey guys, I'm Patrick Hall with Fstoppers.com, and about a month ago when I had a little bit less facial hair, we took a test shot in the studio, I posted it on Facebook, and everybody really liked it. In fact, surprisingly, it was one of the most popular images I posted on Facebook this year. So what I decided to do today was break down the lighting setup so that you can reproduce this exact same look in your own studio. So the overall look for this image, it's kind of an editorial headshot. It's very stylized, so it's probably not something you would do on a daily basis, but it's kind of got that Martin Scholler look, maybe a little bit of Peter Hurley in there too. And I just want to show you guys exactly how I made this. The first piece of the puzzle in terms of getting this stylized look is to shoot really wide open. Now the lens that we have today is the Nikon 85 1.8, and I'm going to be shooting at 1.8 or f2. I really want the eyes and the mouth to be in focus, but then everything else to quickly blur out and give you that really shallow depth of field look. Now normally in the studio, you're not going to be able to shoot wide open with your powerful studio lights because they're just simply too powerful even at their lowest setting. So today I'm going to be using the Profoto B1 lights. They're a battery powered studio strobe, but the beauty is when you turn them all the way down, they kind of act like a speed light so that you can get really low bursts of light. You're not having to put a neutral density filter on your lens, which can be very difficult to focus in the studio, and you can still shoot wide open and use all the modifiers that you already own. If you don't have speed lights or you don't have the B1s, you can definitely use the modeling lamps on your studio strobes because that's going to be a lot less powerful. You just have to change the white balance. So the main light modifier for this type of look is going to be a beauty dish. And the nice thing about a beauty dish is it's kind of a hard light, but because it's a medium-sized dish, it fills the face really nicely. So you kind of get this look that's between a hard light, but it's not going to be as soft as, say, a large softbox. And then because we're going to put the grid in the beauty dish to kill the light power just a little bit, we're also going to get the added benefit of the light not spilling all around the studio. So what I'm looking for when I place my beauty dish is I'm trying to get it perfectly symmetrical right over his face. I'm not trying to cast shadows to the left or the right. I'm actually just trying to cast a shadow from the nose down and a little bit in the lips. That's going to add just a little bit of 3D modeling to his face so it doesn't look really flat. I'm actually going to put the beauty dish a little bit closer because I'm going for an overall soft light instead of a hard light that you would get if the beauty dish was further away. Now, as you can see, just with the beauty dish, this is really cool lighting. A lot of photographers shoot just with the beauty dish. It does give some intense shadows. It also pulls out any imperfections in the face that you could either fix in retouching or you could kind of fill in with extra light. So that's going to be the next step. So what I'm going to do is a very common technique that a lot of photographers do, and that is I'm going to put a fill light below the model's face. I'm going to use a small softbox. I'm actually going to use a very small strip box, and that's going to give it a soft look while still maintaining some of the shadows from the beauty dish above. So now I have my soft light positioned below David. I'm actually using a light stand that I like a lot. This is the Manfrotto 501B. The reason I like this is because it gets really low to the ground. It has a wide base, so if you have to do any kind of fill light from below or even a background light, it's a really nice stand to have in your studio. But basically, I know the settings that I had for the original picture. This light, the fill light, was at the lowest level. So on this flash, it's going to be a 2.0. It's really important to have the key light 2 stops brighter. So I have this beauty dish set at 4. So there's going to be a little bit difference in power there. Let's take this photo here. And so as you can see in this image, there's a little bit of shadow still coming down from above, but now all of a sudden his whole neckline, the shadows under his nose, the shadows under his eyes are lit up. And this fill light is also in a prime position to give a nice highlight in the bottom of his eye. So it also helps bring the eyes out just a little bit. So that's the basic setup for this image. There's really nothing more complicated than that. But I want to show you just a few variations that you can do to this lighting setup and just a few things that you might get wrong if you try to build this in your own studio. So the first most common mistake people have is they set the fill light too bright. Just to show you guys what it would look like if the lower light is too powerful, I'm going to turn this up 2 stops and let's see what this looks like. So basically you now have kind of that uplight monster movie lighting and it just doesn't look flattering. In fact, I think David starts to even look older in this picture because now instead of filling in the shadows caused from the beauty dish, this light's powerful enough now to actually make new shadows. So you actually just want to make sure that you balance these lights out well so that your key light is still your key light from above and that your fill light is still a fill from below. The last thing that you want is this lower light to start acting as your key light. So now that you guys know exactly how I lit the portrait that I posted a while ago on Facebook, I want to show you another cool little tweak that you can do to make this even softer. If instead of David, we had some kind of beauty model in there, you might want to fill in the shadows even more. So one little trick that you could do to have even more fill coming from behind the camera is to put a piece of foam core behind you and then fire a strobe into that. If you can really balance that out well, you're gonna have a nice catch light in the eyes, you're gonna have flat light coming from the front, but you're still gonna have the shadow from the beauty dish. So this is a really easy way just to flatten out your lighting even more to produce kind of a beauty look instead of kind of a dramatic headshot. So now I have this large piece of foam core set up right behind my camera, and I'm going to just set up another studio light on a stand. It's really important that this light does not hit the lens or my model. And I'm just gonna fire it into this piece of foam core. And what it's gonna do is just act as a huge octabox, a huge fill, open shade, any of those sort of things from behind. It's gonna fill in the shadows just a little more. I don't do this a whole lot, but it is a very cool way to give a softer look, and it works really well if you have females in front of your camera. So we're gonna go ahead and take this shot and just compare this with the previous image. So as you can see, it almost gives like a slight ring flash look, but because the foam core is much larger than the ring flash, it's not as harsh. And you also don't get that weird ring look in their eyes. You almost can't even tell what this is. It looks like a Windows behind me. So really cool trick that you can do to kind of add to this lighting style, but use this to taste. So one last thing I just want to show you guys is you can vary this lighting style up once again by moving your beauty dish further away. Most of the time, if you're going to use a beauty dish, you want it really close because you want that soft yet kind of edgy light. But you can actually move this significantly further away. It's going to act as a hard light source, and it's still going to produce a pretty cool portrait, but now all of your shadows are going to be much more defined. So let's move this back. We'll take one more test shot, and you can see how you could use a harder light as your key light and still have a very stylized portrait. All right, so now that my beauty dish is probably like 10 or 15 feet away, I've obviously had to turn up the power. I've gone up 3 stops so that we have the same exposure, and let's take a photo. Now, looking at this picture compared to the beauty dish really close, you can see that there's definitely a harder shadow under his nose. I think this is still a very edgy 3D looking image. This is really cool as well. The background now's changed a little bit. We have more of a gradient on the background because the light's so far away and we still have that grid on the light. So when the beauty dish is really close to your subject, you're gonna get a softer light and you're gonna have more light fall off. It's gonna be a little edgier. But when you move the light further away, it's gonna flatten out the light, but it's almost gonna look like you've taken a portrait in direct sunlight. So it's a cool technique that you can do to vary up everything. If you wanna take 2 very different looking headshots, just move your key light further away. So as a wrap up, the 2 big tricks to this is to use a wide open aperture, like an 85mm, and then to use what we call clamshell lighting. You can use a beauty dish, and then from below you can use a soft light source to fill in those shadows, and you'll wind up with a really cool stylized headshot that you can use in any kind of application. So that's it. Thanks for watching, guys. If you want more videos like this, subscribe to our YouTube channel below and head over to fstoppers.com for all kinds of photographic information.